So without further ado, Kate Cashman.
Thank you. My gosh, what an introduction. Thank you. Introduce myself to people who are watching this. Hi guys, Katelin Cashman. So a little bit about me. I am a physician associate. I'm a primary care provider, so I practice internal medicine. In my private clinic, I do metabolic health management, which means diabetes, weight management for children 12 and up, as well as men and women. And I'm also a certified functional nutrition informed professional. That is a mouthful to say that I have a background in functional nutrition. I'm also a Menopause Society certified practitioner. So I'm certified to help women in midlife with their hormonal concerns. So I have a ton of content I'm really excited to share with you. And I have a fancy new pointer, so I get to play with this. I have no disclosures other than the fact that although I am a clinician, I'm not your clinician yet, right, Mary? Right. I didn't plant her, I swear. So if you do have concerns at the end of this presentation, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll stay as late as I need to, but ultimately you need to speak to your healthcare clinician that you have a relationship with. Ton of information to go over today, so let's dive right in. I'd love to start with a fun fact. So in 2024, the US spent over 150 billion, that's with a B, billion dollars on dietary supplements. What do I mean by that? I mean vitamins, minerals, botanicals, any health-related product. Why are we doing this? Well, it's because we want to feel our best. We want to live longer. We want to prevent disease. We want to be more energetic. We want to sleep better, right? We are obviously very motivated to do this as a society. So what if I told you there was a supplement? Let's call it a magic pill. It would be immediately available to everyone in the world. It didn't matter your age, your height, your gender, your eye color, your zodiac sign. None of that matters. It's available to you instantaneously. When you take it as directed, there are 0 side effects and 0 medication interactions, and it's going to be universally recommended. All your healthcare clinicians, researchers, they're all going to support this thing because there's a lot of data and research that backs up all the wild claims I'm about to make about it. So I would say this magic pill is going to help you lose weight. It's going to make you gain muscle, balance your hormones, boost your brain power, improve your heart health, elevate your mood, increase your erections and boost your orgasms. It's going to make your hair grow. It's going to restore your youthful complexion. It's going to prevent dying. This sounds pretty incredible, right? I think the next thing you'd say is, well, how much does it cost? And then when I tell you it's free, you're going to say, get out of here. You charlatan, like there's no such thing. What I'm going to say, but there is. And how cute are these babies? Oh. They figured it out. I love that one with the squishy face. So let's do what they're doing, right? What is sleep? So as I was coming up with this presentation, I was trying so hard to really come up with a definition for this shared experience we all have, but it's complex. And I turned to Merriam-Webster and said, oh, okay, they figured it out. So I don't normally read off my slides, but I feel like this is really important. Every word matters here. So sleep is the natural, meaning it's not artificially induced, and it's easily reversible, meaning it's not a coma, and it's periodic, meaning we're coming in and out of it, and it's a state of many living things, and it's characterized by the absence of wakefulness and the loss of consciousness of one's surroundings. Okay. But there's more to it than that, right? It's associated with dreaming, which is really unique to the sleep state. And we all kind of do the same thing when we do it, right? Usually we're laying down and our eyes are closed. And there are these measurable changes that are taking place in your body, in your brain, things that are slowing down your blood pressure, changing your body temperature, changing the blood flow to different organ systems in your body. It's made up of cycles, whether they're non-rapid eye movement cycles, which is non-REM, or REM cycle. And finally, it's essential to the restoration and recovery of nearly every vital bodily and mental function there is. That's a lot of information. So before we get into the complexity of sleep, you have to humor me for a minute. I am a science geek at heart, right? So for me to say how excited I am to talk to you about this complex shift between wakefulness and sleep, It is just mind-blowing that we can do this. So we are seeing a change in thousands of neurons, nerve cells in our brain that's communicating and cascading this information to all these other organs in our body to allow us to shift from wake to sleep. So we have two driving forces. The first is sleep-wake homeostasis. You're going to hear me reference homeostasis a lot when I do a wellness lecture. That's because homeostasis is basically your body's happy balance, right? It wants to be in the kind of this static like balance point. So sleep-wake homeostasis is this tug of war between sleep and wake. So it's quite simply, it's the longer you've been awake, the more pressure there is to sleep. That's your body's driving force to recover after a period of wakefulness. So sleep-wake homeostasis is sleep dependent. That means the less sleep you're getting, the stronger your sleep-wake homeostasis drive is. The second driving force is your circadian alerting system. We're all kind of familiar with this, your circadian rhythm, circa, approximately DM day, right? So it's about this 24-hour period that's based on a series of internal clocks. I'll show you a slide on this a little bit later. But these clocks communicate with your central clock in your brain and then peripheral clocks throughout your organs. And this is sleep independent. So that means that we have a sleep dependent, which is your sleep-wake homeostasis, and a sleep independent system, which is your circadian rhythm. And this is affecting all systems of the body. I'm showing you this chart not because I want anyone to memorize it, but I want to show you the complexity of the different areas of the brain that are involved in either sleep or the wakefulness pathways. And there are multiple hormones and neurochemicals involved here. So if you picture two pathways, one pathway is going to promote sleep, the other pathway is going to promote wakefulness. I'm showing you this because in order to understand what's wrong, we have to understand what happens when it's going right, when things are working well. And there's multiple chemicals and hormones like melatonin and GABA, you might have heard of those, that promote sleep state, and multiple hormones that promote wakefulness, like our adrenaline hormones, like norepinephrine or histamine. And the next logical question you probably have is, oh, so if I have a problem with my sleep, is there a problem with these pathways? I'd say yes, it's probably too little of the sleep activation pathway, too much of the wakefulness pathway, or a combination of both. The next question you might ask is, well, is that how sleep medications work? Because I've heard antihistamines make people sleepy, and I can use my laser pointer and say, yeah, right? An antihistamine, if you're blocking wakefulness, would lead to sleep. So this is how a lot of our sleep medications work, but the functional clinician in me says it doesn't have to be a medication. There are foods and lifestyle interventions that we can do that can also stimulate these pathways. So I mentioned sleep occurs in cycles. Well, how do we know that? Because you're sleeping, right? So how do we understand that the cycle's occurring? And that's because we can use polysomnography, which is sleep study, to investigate. And one type of sleep study tool is an EEG, which is used to measure the electrical activity of your brain. So we can tell, based on these little squiggles, which are brain waves, what type of sleep you're in, what stage you're in. And we're going to take all these stages and break them apart. So there are 4 sleep stages. Each cycle lasts somewhere between 90 to 120 minutes, and depending on how long you've slept for the night, you'll cycle through about 4 to 6 cycles per night. There used to be 5 sleep stages, but kind of like how Pluto used to be a planet and now it's not a planet. And 4 got demoted. It's no longer a sleep stage. We kind of group them together in N3. So if you're looking at an older reference that says there's an N4, that's what happens. So let's break these all down. N1 is our first sleep stage. This is a non-rapid eye movement stage, and it's light sleep. We're only in it a very brief amount of time, like a few minutes, especially in the middle of the night when you're cycling through. You might be in this for a minute or two. It's characterized by very light changes in brain activity. You're easily rousable here. Oh, and that's your brainwave. Stage N2, non-rapid eye movement 2, is where you spend the majority of your sleep time. So about half of your sleep is spent in N2. We do see some changes in brain activity here, and this is we're starting to see some of the restorative benefits of sleep, especially from memory consolidation. N3, this is magical stuff. You can tell this brainwave looks different. There's something different going on in this stage. This is our deep restorative sleep, where we're starting to see not only cognitive and emotional benefits, but also physical restoration here, and I'll talk about that more in subsequent slides. And then stage 4 is our REM, or our rapid eye movement sleep. We call this our vivid dreaming sleep. And this is so bizarre, right? So you spend about 25% of your sleep in this stage. And I love it because your body experiences muscle atonia, which means muscle paralysis. So nothing in your body is moving except for the muscles of your eyes and your respiratory function, which is so fascinating, right? When you think of how humans evolved, that it was an evolutionary advantage for our cave-dwelling humans to like not act out their dreams, right? So they got to pass on their DNA. Anyway, so very exciting for the brain because we see some uptick in memory consolidation, emotional regulation, and we'll talk about that more. So let's start with a fact or fiction question to keep you guys on your toes and not falling asleep. The majority of our deep restorative sleep is happening in the first few hours of the night. True or false? I hear a mix. It's fact. True. So what is this? This chart is a hypnogram. So hypnogram is a form of polysomnography, and it's based off of data from your brain movement, your EEG, your eye movement, your EOG, and your muscle movement, your EMG studies. And we see this beautiful like sleep architecture. And this is a normal sleep cadence that the average person would experience. So N3 is dominating in the first half of the night. We can see that's where it's most, we have the most intensity and the longest duration. And that makes sense, right? If you think of that sleep-wake homeostasis drive I was telling you about, where the longer you're awake, the more pressure there is to sleep. This is our body's natural drive to restore, what we put our body through when it's awake. So this timing is really critical for physical and cognitive recovery. But another fact or fiction question. We only dream during REM sleep. True or false?
False.
Oh, I heard one solid true. It's fiction. Sorry. Yes, we do dream during REM, right? That's our vivid dreaming. But we also dream in all other stages of non-REM sleep. The kind that you're remembering, the real vivid, emotionally intense dreams, those are usually REM dreams. And then our non-REM dreams are more thought-like. Okay, so why do we need sleep? Well, I could talk to you for days about that, but we have a time limit here. So I'm going to argue that sleep is indispensable for the optimal functioning of nearly every major biological system. So that sounds like a lot. I'm going to break it down into 10 big points of why we need sleep. The first is for energy conservation. So when you're sleeping, sleep is going to reduce your basal metabolic rate, right? Your metabolism slows down. And your body is able to go into a state of rest and conserve energy for the next period of wakefulness. Another evolutionary advantage, right? If our cave-dwelling ancestors were roused by a predator in the middle of the night, people who still had gas in the tank and could run away from the predator, they passed on their genes, right? So energy conservation is really important for our species as we evolved. What about recovery? So I'm going to talk a lot about recovery and body repair in the next few slides. So I'm going to put a pin in that, but I'm going to give you a teaser and say basically during REM sleep, we experience especially during N3, like that non-REM sleep part and that deep restorative sleep, we're going to see physical restoration in our body tissue. What about neural development? So when you think of the brain of an infant, picture kind of like a bonsai tree, right? There's a ton of leaves and a ton of branches. And we need to do some synaptic pruning. We need to narrow down these connections and help mature a brain. So neural connections are made during REM sleep. And this is really just vital importance to children as they're growing up. I'm keeping myself on time here. And that kind of goes into my next point about learning, right? So both REM and non-REM sleep are important for learning. Non-REM sleep is more important for like the factual learning of synaptic plasticity where you're acquiring skills and such. But both REM and non-REM are important for learning. So that person who told you, hey, the night before your SATs, the best thing you can do is get a good night's sleep, they were right. I wish I listened. What about our immune system? So I mentioned that when you're sleeping, your blood flow will change to different organs, right? So different parts of your body become more active during sleep. Your immune system is one of those parts. And while you are sleeping, your body is building its little soldiers, your antibodies in your cytokines to fight off intruders or infection. And the flip side of this is when you are chronically sleep deprived, you're more immunocompromised, you're more susceptible to getting infection. What about memory consolidation? So both non-REM and REM sleep are important in this. Non-REM sleep is more important for factual memories, and REM sleep is more important for, like, emotional memories, if you will. And speaking of emotions, emotional regulation is really important during sleep, especially REM sleep. So I'm saying this with kindness. It doesn't matter if you're 3 or if you're 53 in the throes of your menopause. If you are not getting enough REM sleep, you are going to be more emotionally labile. You're going to have a harder time regulating emotions, which actually increases the risk of mood disorders. So it's really important for emotional regulation. What about cardiovascular health? Oh my gosh, we know that sleep is a state of rest, right? So if you are not hitting that, especially that deep restorative sleep, we're not seeing your blood pressure come down. We're not seeing that decrease in your heart rate. This is, on the flip side, increasing the risk for things like cardiovascular events and high blood pressure when you're chronically sleep deprived, because you're just revving up that fight or flight system that's keeping you awake. What about metabolic health? Well, I'm a metabolic health specialist, so this is like something I'm super passionate about. But I'm going to give you a hot take and say that I think the most important neuromodulator for our weight is our sleep. And that's because it's so intrinsically deeply tied to our appetite hormones and to our blood sugar metabolism. If you are chronically undersleeping, you are not resetting those hunger hormones. You're not quieting your hunger cues and your cravings. And you're also not helping regulate your blood pressure, which is leading to things like, I meant to say your blood sugar, which is leading to things like prediabetes or diabetes, which results in weight gain. And what about cellular toxin removal? First of all, I thought that was such a cool graphic, but what do I mean by this? So your body has an advanced waste management system. It's called your lymphatic system, and it helps take waste out of your body. Your brain has a specialized waste management system called your glymphatic system, the G. Your glymphatic system is this amazing network of basically tissue exchange where it literally pulls neurotoxic waste out of your brain. What is neurotoxic waste? Things like beta amyloid plaques. Why have you heard that before? That's because they're associated with neurodegenerative disease, dementia. Alzheimer's dementia or Alzheimer's disease is a diagnosis that's made post-mortem. That means we autopsy the brain of a person with Alzheimer's, and what do we see? We see plaques and tangles. And what are those plaques and tangles? It's neurotoxic waste that hasn't been cleared out. So I'm telling you, literally, that sleep, N3, deep restorative sleep, is literally cleaning out your brain of the toxins that are leading to dementia. Whoa. Okay, so those were 10 really important things. Phew. Let's talk about recovery a bit more. If you're here, chances are you spend time moving your body and you're looking to make gains in your strength training or your cardiovascular fitness. And I'm going to tell you now that sleep is indispensable to muscle hypertrophy, which means muscle growth, and recovery. And there are 3 big things that are going on while you're sleeping that are helping you build muscle. And the first 2 are hormonally mediated. So when you are sleeping, particularly in N3, that's that deep restorative slow wave sleep, we see a change in your hormones. We see an increase in anabolic hormones. Those are growth hormones. These are the ones that favor muscle growth. Things like testosterone and growth hormone are secreted. We also see a reduction in the muscles that in the hormones that break down muscle. I mean, catabolic hormones, things like inflammatory cytokines or cortisol. And then we also see the actual muscle growth occur while you're sleeping. So to make your muscles grow, you need to have the Lego, that's protein, so that your body can call upon the hormones, which tell the body how to repair the muscle tissue that's been damaged. So evidence shows that both short and long-term sleep deprivation are associated with reductions in muscle strength, power output, and muscle endurance. This chart here looks at, it was 1,881 participants who were 60 and older. And this comes from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. So what they did was they looked at a group of older individuals and said, Does sleep determine their hand grip strength? And the answer is yes. And we see this dose-dependent U-shaped curve saying too little sleep and too much sleep impacts hand grip strength. Well, why is that important? Well, hand grip strength is one of the most important prognostic factors, predictive factors of how well someone's going to age. Your hand grip strength could be the difference between walking down a flight of stairs and holding onto that banister or falling and breaking your hip. So this is a really important finding that we could see that boils down again to sleep. So what's the bottom line? This is going to sound like a hot take, but this is not. This is evidence-based that it is more beneficial for your strength training and your muscle recovery to get the right amount of sleep than it is to work out and work your muscles in a sleep-deprived state and then rely on a nap later to compensate for that. And if you have to exercise in your sleep-deprived state, it's best to do it several hours before bedtime, like 3 to 4 hours, so it doesn't impact your sleep architecture that night. So how much exercise is recommended for optimal sleep? Okay, so hear me out, because I'm going to get a little geeky on you for a minute. I love data. I love research. The best kind of research we have are randomized controlled trials. A randomized controlled trial is when you hear about a double-blind study. That means both the participant and the researcher don't know what treatment you're on. And we look, and that's how we get really good, unbiased data. This data comes from a meta-analysis. That means it reviewed 86 different randomized controlled trials involving over 7,000 people. So this is like the best of the best chef's kiss data to interpret. Okay, how much exercise is recommended for optimal sleep? 920 MET minutes a week. That's very specific. And what the heck is a MET minute? Okay, a MET is a metabolic equivalent task. This is a unit of measure. This measures how much work does an activity take. What are some examples of 920 MET minutes? Well, it depends on what activity you're doing. If something is low intensity, like Pilates, then you do less of it. More of it, pardon. And if something's higher intensity, like strength training that we were talking about, then less of it is going to get you to those MET minutes. So if you're talking about strength training, which is going to be a moderate intensity, about 5 MET minutes, we're talking 184 minutes of resistance training per week. This is really specific. So why is it so important that we find a sweet spot? Well, too little exercise is just not enough stimulus to impact your sleep. Too much exercise leads to overtraining, physiological stress, that means impaired ability to repair your muscles in a time of work. And we also see sympathetic activation. So if you think back to those two pathways in the beginning, one that promotes sleep and one that promotes wakefulness, this sympathetic activation is cranking up the signal to that pathway that keeps you alert. So just right, when you're getting the right amount of exercise, you're going to have improved sleep efficiency. That means the type of sleep you're getting is going to be better. You're going to have reduced wake after sleep onset. That's WASO. This is something that's going to come up more in this presentation. And then you're going to increase your slow wave sleep. That's that deep restorative and free sleep. So your sleep requirement's going to vary depending on your age. For most adults 18 and older, somewhere between 7 to 9 hours a night is the recommended amount of sleep. If you're over 65, maybe more like 7 to 8 hours. But for the simplicity of this presentation, we're going to say somewhere around 7 to 9 hours is correct for most adults. I'm showing you this because I can't say how important it is to remember that children are not little adults, and they have different needs as they're developing related to their sleep. So whether you have kids that you're raising or grandkids that you're helping raise, or you work with children, we have to remember that their sleep needs are different and they're dramatically higher. Children are extremely susceptible to the effects of low sleep, whether it's in regard to their brain development or to their metabolic health. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so I said that we need to sleep somewhere between 7 to 9 hours. And as we age, we should be getting to that point where sleep is easier, right? We know what to do. We've got more time, maybe less commitments at work. So why is our sleep breaking? Well, you're not making it up. There is definitely a change in sleep architecture associated with age. This is for men and women. And there was a study that looked at adults between the ages of 20 to 90 without sleep disorders. So these were adults who reported neurotypical patterns related to their sleep. And we found that per decade, men's total sleep time went down 8 minutes per decade. Women's total sleep time went down 10 minutes per decade. And it kind of plateaued somewhere around 60 or 70. So why? What's going on? Well, we also see changes in our sleep architecture, where we're seeing less of that deep, good N3 or REM sleep and more of that lighter stage sleep. We're seeing changes in the driving forces that are promoting sleep, like hormones, those two pathways I was talking to you about in the beginning, the ones that promote sleep, the ones that promote wakefulness. So there are age-related changes in things like melatonin and growth hormone and testosterone. But this graph really annoyed me as a menopause clinician because it's missing something really important. And I'm showing you this because women are not little men, just like children are not little adults. Women have a catastrophic midlife hormone change that's directly impacting their sleep architecture. And we'll talk about that more in a bit. So what happens if we're not sleeping enough? Well, unfortunately, some pretty significant stuff is happening. And it's if we're sleeping too little or sleeping too much. So too little, for, like I said, the purpose of this presentation, if you're over the age of 18, is somewhere between, or too little will be under 7 hours a night, and too much will be greater than 9 hours a night. I'll show how it impacts our cognition, our emotions, our body, our metabolism. But before I get to the data about sleep, I want to preface this by saying it's hard to collect data about sleep. And I love data. I've already geeked out about that with you. But I want to just lay the groundwork for why this is challenging for us to get it and interpret it. It's underreported because it's limited by recall bias, right? I mean, you're sleeping. So best case scenario, we see data reported like how many hours someone slept, not necessarily the quality of their sleep or what sleep stages they were in. So we can do polysomnography, and we can do fancy tests like measuring performance-based measures like grip strength. That was that study I showed you earlier. But a lot of the information we get has to be taken from animals because first, we do no harm, and it's pretty unethical to ask someone not to sleep because we know how dangerous it is for them. So when you're doing these randomized controlled trials, you really have to do the participant versus placebo, which is standard of care. It doesn't mean no intervention. It means what the standard of care is. But there are some interesting people that we can monitor. Shift workers is a great group of people to study because they willingly or unwillingly are usually not getting the right amount of sleep. Even daylight savings. Ours just ended, but when daylight savings kicks up again in the spring, we can see some interesting changes in people. And then finally, there are so many overlapping psychiatric and medical conditions going. It can be hard to really tease out what's just related to sleep concerns. So that being said, before I share the data with you, I'm curious to know how you guys are sleeping. You don't have to answer this, but this information comes from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. Now, this is something that's given to U.S. citizens who are not in the military and not institutionalized. And it should be given every 2 years as a survey. We'll see if the CDC keeps doing it. But it's been going on since the 1990s, and it's good data. So 1 in 2 adults are sleeping 7 to 9 hours a night. Sounds like maybe this room might have a disproportionate number of people who aren't, but only about half of us are getting the right number of sleep. That doesn't mean the quality of their sleep is good, keep in mind. This is just hours reported that they're sleeping. 1 in 3 adults are reported sleeping too little. 1 in 5 adults say that they're sleeping too much. Okay, data. So this data I'm about to share with you is a meta-analysis that was looking at millions of people over hundreds of studies that they were able to break down into this. This data was published in June of 2025. And I'm showing you the yellow bubble is unique to people who are chronic short sleepers. The green bubble is unique to people who are chronic long sleepers. And the orange in the middle is what they have in common. So what happens when we're not sleeping the right amount? Chronic short sleepers are more likely to be younger or middle-aged folks. They have impaired cognitive performance. What I mean by that is reduced executive functioning, deficits in attention and memory. They tend to have more adverse lifestyle behaviors. That means risky things like drowsy driving, for example, which is akin to drunk driving, really. And they tend to have more high blood pressure. Makes sense, right? If we talked about not getting into that restorative part of sleep, you're more likely to have high blood pressure. What about people who are chronic long sleepers? Well, they're more likely to be older adults. They're more likely to have chronic illness, and they have increased risk of falls and frailty. But what do both chronic short sleepers and long sleepers have in common? A lot of really spooky stuff. So stroke, heart attack, cardiovascular disease, makes sense, right? We're just not getting into that restorative state, and our sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight, is running all the time. What about metabolic disease like type 2 diabetes and obesity? I put an asterisk next to obesity because I wanted to share with you a 2019 meta-analysis that looked at adults who were sleeping less than 7 hours a night. It showed they had a 41% increased risk of obesity compared to normal sleepers. 41%. And this effect is even more powerful in children. I looked at a meta-analysis looking at a study on kids, school-age kids, aged 3 to 13. And those kiddos had a 54 to 70% higher risk of obesity compared to their counterparts who were sleeping the normal amount. So metabolic disease is really prevalent here. What about cognitive or emotional disorders like depression or dementia? We talked about that earlier. Talked about the benefits of sleep. And cancer. Why is cancer on here? How does sleep relate to cancer? It does in a few ways. You have a compromised immune system. That waste management system is not working as well as it should. So it's not clearing out the cells that would otherwise your body would have detected, those ones that might be multiplying differently or rapidly. The WHO, the World Health Organization, has listed shift work as a probable carcinogen. What? You mean like nicotine and asbestos? Yeah. That's scary stuff. And if you're like, okay, you mentioned death, but like, really? Like, what's the increased risk of dying? I don't know. It seems pretty significant to me. A 14% increased risk of death if you're a chronic short sleeper, and a 34% increased risk of death if you're a chronic long sleeper. Are we depressed yet? Okay. So we all know we need to be sleeping. We talked about how important it is and how important if we don't get enough. But why aren't we sleeping? What is challenging our sleep? Oh, that is a lot to cover. So I'm going to break it down into 5 big buckets of information. But let's start with the fact or fiction. So the most important cue that affects our circadian rhythm is light. True or false? Ooh, that was an easy one. Yes, you guys are all so smart. Yes, that's fact. So I love to go back to our ancestors and talk about how humans evolved. Our cave-dwelling ancestors did not have smartphones, right? So their primary environmental cue to start over their circadian rhythm was blue light, right? Outside. What is it actually doing? It's actually triggering receptors in your eyes, which are stimulating your brain to slow down melatonin production. If you think of those 2 pathways, if you're quieting down your sleep pathway, you're going to wake up your alert pathway. The problem is we have brought blue light into our homes, right? So, okay, when I think of environment, I'm thinking of things that are disrupting our circadian rhythm. How is it impacting our sleep? It's increasing the time it takes for us to fall asleep. It's reducing our sleep duration, and it's reducing the quality of our sleep. What I mean by that is less of the good sleep and more of the light, easily rousable sleep. This is a picture of our internal clocks. So this is our circadian rhythm. Your biggest clock is in your brain and your hypothalamus. And then we have all these peripheral clocks in your muscle and your liver and other organs that all communicate with a series of hormones. So other things that can impact in our environment that can impact our sleep, it's going to be lack of green spaces, temperature being either too hot or too cold, noise, bringing screens or devices into our bedroom, encouraging that blue light into outside at the time we would normally see it. What about our behavior? This is tricky, right? Because these are things that we're kind of directly choosing or have been thrown upon us. So when I think of things that behavior can do, it's going to disrupt our circadian rhythms, and it increases arousal. What I mean by that is that pathway, again, that promotes wakefulness, leading to fragmented sleep. So things like shift work, or like we said, shift work being one of the probable carcinogens noted by the WHO. So poor sleep hygiene, including napping. Even an exercise schedule. We talked about how exercise is so important, right? But when you do it too late at night, especially higher intensity exercise, it delays sleep onset, meaning how long it takes you to fall asleep. It changes your sleep duration, meaning how long you stay asleep for, and it reduces the sleep quality. Again, less of the good N3 stuff and more of the light sleep. Travel or jet lag is a problem. Late night entertainment. Again, thinking of things that are stimulating your wakefulness pathway, your alert hormones. Even eating late at night, right? When it comes down to it, again, we're just simple creatures that evolved. We're animals, right? Our circadian rhythm isn't just about light or sleep. It's also about appetite regulation too. And the hormones that you need to regulate your appetite and digest your food, those are strongest in the daytime. We're not meant to be eating late at night. It stimulates wakefulness state. What about hormones? Oh my God, I could be up here for hours talking to you about this, but to simplify, here is our little guy who's happy about homeostasis. He's like, yay, good balance. Well, what shifts that balance out of order is reduction in some good things and too much of some bad things. So some things like melatonin and sex hormones like estradiol, progesterone, or testosterone, when those go down, we have worse sleep. When things go up, like cortisol or catecholamines, which are your stress hormones, this also shifts that balance into, again, promoting that pathway to wakefulness. What is melatonin actually doing? We know it's essential to that circadian rhythm, but really it's promoting sleep onset through melatonin receptors in your pineal gland. What is estrogen, estradiol, doing? Why is that so important? Well, that's a tricky one. So there are physiological, meaning body consequences of not having enough estrogen, like hot flashes or an angry bladder or musculoskeletal pains and aches that are waking you up in the middle of the night. So we have physical symptoms, but estradiol is also a neurotransmitter and it acts on your brain to promote your sleep. So there's an essential part of your brain where sleep, it's kind of like the switch that gets sleep started. Estradiol plays a big role there. So when you remove estradiol, you're getting disrupted, fragmented sleep, even without the hot flashes and the angry bladder and the musculoskeletal concerns. So this is complex, but hormones absolutely play a big role in managing our sleep-wake cycle. What about medications? All right, don't get mad at me. This is a really busy slide. And it would take me a long time to go through each of these things individually. But what I want to share with you is I want you to advocate. I want you to leave this talk tonight and call up your primary care and say, hey, I'm curious, are the medications I'm taking impacting my sleep? Or if someone makes a recommendation to you, hey, start this new med or try this new supplement, look into it, talk to your healthcare provider, because there are so many common medications that we're taking for other reasons that could be affecting your sleep. And it might affect your sleep by changing your sleep architecture. That means changing how much of your sleep is N3 restorative or REM sleep versus that light sleep. Or it might be causing, delaying your sleep onset. It might even be causing side effects that are then leading to withdrawal if you stop them, and that's causing insomnia. So it's really complex. And if it's over the counter, that doesn't necessarily mean it's safe or it's a good choice, especially people who are spending time working out and investing in those supplements. Check them out because there might be something in your pre-workout drink that's leading to difficulties with your sleep. I put an asterisk next to alcohol because alcohol is a sneaky bugger. So yes, alcohol might induce sleep, but it changes sleep architecture. So the sleep that you're getting is not that deep restorative N3 sleep. It's the easily arousable sleep. So your eyes might be closed, but are you getting deep restorative sleep? No. So what about diseases? Oh my God, I could spend another day up here talking to you about this. There's overlap between medical and psychiatric conditions, and they can either directly impact your sleep or they can indirectly impact your sleep because of the medications that we use to treat them or the side effects they cause. Some diseases I can think about would be like obstructive sleep apnea or restless leg syndrome, bladder problems or acid reflux. Blindness causes a lot of disruption with sleep, right? I mean, they're not getting that signal in their eyes, and then they're not getting their circadian rhythm activation. And then psychiatric conditions like depression, dementia, that can really impact our sleep. So how do you know if you need to look into this further? If everyone in here is wondering, well, what's wrong with me? Do I need a sleep study? Maybe. And that's why I gave you these 2 questionnaires to look at if you want to do them later. One of them is on the fatigue severity scale. And this is looking at fatigue as a sense of exhaustion or reduced capacity for doing physical or mental activity. And that's different compared to sleepiness, right? So that's a person who has the tendency to fall asleep, during the day. And they're good at looking at two different things. So if you're someone who your clinician might think you have concerns with sleep apnea, they might be doing the Epworth with you. But if you're someone who's just chronically tired, maybe they need to do this study with you, the fatigue severity scale. And these are things you can complete and share with your healthcare clinician. So, all right, fact or fiction. This is a good one. Napping can temporarily improve alertness, cognitive performance, and reduce sleepiness after sleep restriction or sleep loss.
True.
Oh, you guys are good. I thought I was going to get some mixed results there. Okay, it is true, but I put an asterisk there. How come? Well, that's because the benefits are most pronounced for short-term recovery. Naps are less effective than a full night's sleep at relieving that homeostatic sleep pressure. So that's that drive that the longer you've been awake, the more you want to sleep. And these restorative effects are not persisting into the following day. So if you have a chronically, altered sleep schedule, you're going to have chronic deficits, even if you're napping. So the bottom line, naps can be helpful if it's a short-term one-off thing or if you're a shift worker, but it's not a substitute for regular sleep. So then, we get into this cycle. And what happens? So we sleep like crap, and then we wake up and then we feel like crap, and our body hurts and our mind starts to race, and we say, oh no, what if I don't sleep well again tonight? So we do these behavioral changes, which can be maladaptive. We increase our caffeine, and then maybe we take something like alcohol to make us sleep. But that's changing our sleep architecture, and we get these worsening sleep patterns, and then we're in it. We're in the cycle. So how do we break this cycle? Because we know it's impacting our emotional health, our cognitive health, our physical health, and our metabolic health. Okay, we can start repairing this tonight, but it's not going to fix itself overnight. Okay, and the tips I'm about to give you are grounded in sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene, I've heard about that before. My doctor told me about sleep hygiene. Well, the reason why sleep hygiene is being recommended to you is because it's evidence-based. That means that there is research that shows this stuff does help. None of it's easy and none of it's fun, but it does help. And these are the first steps in cognitive behavior therapy. Cognitive behavior therapy being the first line, non-pharmacological, meaning not medication intervention that we use to improve sleep, especially insomnia. So what's the first thing? We need to maintain a consistent sleep schedule. Like I said, none of this is fun. So that means usually within an hour, falling asleep and getting up at the same time, even on weekends. The bed and the bedroom are for sleep and sex only. That's a little more fun, but we need to be keeping devices and books and work out of our bedroom. Go to bed only when you're sleepy. And now this is the flip side to that, right? When you're not sleeping, we need to get out of bed. But what do? We should be sleeping. I know. The worst thing we can do is stay in bed and watch the alarm clock or roller, tossing and turning. So the short tip is when you get out of bed, you're supposed to do a mindless, low-level activity in yellow light, not blue light. So the worst thing we can do is turn on our phone and scroll. So device-free zone, get out of your bed, go to a different place, fold a load of laundry, read a boring article in the newspaper. You'll get tired, and then when you go back to sleep, you're going to start to get into better habits. We need to avoid napping during the day, but I say that with an asterisk because sometimes naps are okay, but they shouldn't be done within 3 to 4 hours of the time that you are planning to fall asleep. And just like we go to the gym in our sneakers and our workout clothes, we need to get ready for sleep like it's an event. So we need to make sure our bedroom supports our sleep. We need, a dark, quiet, cool, comfortable environment to sleep. And then this part's even harder, right? Limiting the things that are impacting our sleep. So whether that's the supplements or the behavior changes we're making, eating late at night, exercising too late at night, turning on the television to watch one more show in bed, and it turns out to be like a police chase, I don't know, something that's getting your sympathetic nervous system going. So what's my challenge to you? My challenge is start a sleep journal. I never said it was going to be fun. But I did print out an example one for you. You can get this at the National Sleep Foundation. And these are free. And they're really helpful because this is about anything you're going to decide with your clinician is shared medical decision making. And the more data, the better. So this is going to help narrow down your diagnosis and figure out what interventions are working and which ones aren't. It's going to help you identify triggers like, oh, when I exercised a little later, I noticed I woke up in the middle of the night, or that extra glass of wine I had with dinner, I woke up later that night. Also, for women, I really would love you to do it for 30 days because whether, again, you're 45 or 65, you still are experiencing some hormonal fluctuations. So I think more data over time is really important to understand. So what are the take-home points? Because I'm going on 45 minutes right now. So take-home points. Good quality sleep is crucial for every facet of our mind, body, spirit, emotional, cognitive, physical, metabolic health. There is an optimal sleep duration for everyone. For most people in this room, it's somewhere between 7 to 9 hours a night. I can't say it enough that children are not little adults and women are not little men, and both children and women have unique barriers when it comes to getting their sleep. Both chronic short sleep and chronic long sleep are detrimental and can cause serious health outcomes. Lots of things are impacting our sleep related to our environment, our behavior, our medications, our mental and psychiatric conditions. And you can start sleeping better tonight. It's not easy, but it can happen with lifestyle intervention. She's happy. So I have to throw in more babies. Right? Talk about that sleep-wake homeostasis, that drive to fall asleep, sleeping on the bookshelf. Anyway, so here are some resources that I use to prepare this presentation for you. So I would love to answer any questions. And if we're too shy to ask questions, I'm happy to give some clinical scenarios. I also have a list of sleep medications on a different slide that if you guys wanted to ask me about those too. So all yours. It was a race.
No, that's all right. Go ahead. Okay. That was fascinating.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I dream a lot. Dreaming is okay. Is it in the REM time or it's both deep sleep and the later sleep?
Yeah, so you can dream in any sleep stage, right? Whether it's REM, which is our vivid dream state, or non-REM. The dreams you're probably remembering are REM dreams. And if I go back to that hypnogram that shows you how your sleep architecture changes throughout the night, you'll see that toward the end of the night, you're not going down all the way to N3. So you're cycling more between light stage and REM, light REM, light REM. So those are the ones we tend to remember more in the morning when we wake up.
Those dreams.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're not resting well if you're having it during REM sleep.
Oh no, that's a
good.
sign of normal
they're
healthy.
crazy.
Oh yes. Well, okay, let me put an asterisk there. Dreaming is a normal part of sleep architecture. I would say that disruptive dreams, ones that are really vivid or disturbing, you should talk to your healthcare clinician about. Sometimes those can be medication induced or medication side effect. They can also represent a different type of sleep disorder. And then night terrors are different than nightmares. So those are those little kids who are not in a REM stage, but are having very loud night terrors. That's different. Yeah. Any other question too?
What are your thoughts on the Apple Watch monitoring with the Apple phone?
Yeah, so yeah, the devices. So my short answer is sure. My longer answer is what are we using that data for, right? So I don't have these great randomized controlled trials that tell me how well they're working, especially when you compare one to the other. I think that if you're using them as a stimulus cue or a way to kind of do a little bit of your own sleep diary or cognitive behavior therapy, awesome. If you've noticed a pattern between the type of show you watch at night before you go to bed and how that impacts your sleep, great. That's more data for you. If you bring that to me and it shows that you're having multiple wake-ups in the middle of the night, I'm going to take that information just like you had told me and shared with me that I'm having multiple wake-ups. The things I don't love about continuous monitors are ones when I get a call in the middle of the night when a patient noticed their heart rate went down to 59. That's physiologically normal to see changes in heart rate or temperature. So that kind of stuff I wouldn't worry too much about if your watch is picking up an abnormal heart rhythm. That might be significant though, and you should bring that to your clinician. If your watch is picking up abnormal blood sugar readings, so some of these devices are actually more like continuous glucose monitors, or they chat with those. Those are noteworthy things to bring to your team, especially if you're a person with a metabolic health condition like overweight or obesity or prediabetes or diabetes, because we might be truly seeing some blood sugar changes there. But for the most part, if you're using it to get information for you to make lifestyle decisions about, awesome. That's great. Yeah.
I lost my voice, so sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm louder than both of us.
So one, are there medications that are helpful, like melatonin? Because there was a new study, I just heard that it can actually increase your risk of heart failure. So I'm asking about that. If that's great. And if the other thing is, if you wake up to pee but fall right back to sleep and still get the 7 hours, it's not really an issue, right? Because some of us, our bladders are just very active.
Yeah,
Sleep.
I love that. That was like a compound question. So I'm going to answer the easy part.
So much else.
But now I have to decide what the easy part is. So let me say yes. There are many FDA approved medications. Let me put a pin in there right there. When something is FDA approved, it has gone through a rigorous application to become approved by the FDA. That means that we know that it is safe and effective because it's been shown through evidence, right? Through randomized controlled trials. So it is hard to get something FDA approved. There are medications that we take or your clinician might recommend to you for sleep that are not FDA approved for sleep, but it doesn't mean that they're not safe or effective, right? So this chart is showing you, and this is so small, I apologize, but I had to like zoom out to get the screenshot of it. This is showing you different FDA approved and non-FDA approved, but well studied medications that help with sleep. There are many of them. Melatonin, you mentioned, is an excellent choice for someone who's looking for help with sleep onset rather than sleep maintenance. Like melatonin isn't great for that 3 a.m. wake up, but it is nice for that person to start to feel sleepy when they're supposed to. And melatonin is best for kind of resetting that circadian rhythm. I really like it for people who are shift workers or who have travel, like jet lag, sleep concerns. But yes, there are lots of medications to talk about with your clinician. They're not all covered by insurance. Like anything we recommend, there are good and bad to it. So they have side effects associated with them. Some categories are safer than others. If you're a person over the age of 60, you should be careful about choosing medications that do not increase the risk for falls or disorientation or excessive sleepiness. So there are some of these that are going to have a big kind of like red flag next to them saying it's probably not the best choice in someone who's over the age of 60. But great discussion to have with your clinician. The second part of her, if someone wasn't able to hear her question, was, what if you're that person who has kind of like an irritable bladder and you wake up in the middle of the night to urinate, but then you fall right back asleep? Is that something to be concerned about? Does that count to my, right, that's the gist of your question, does that count to my overall sleep goals? I would say, sure, that's probably fine, but I would love it if someone slept through the whole night. And I think there's lots of ways that we can help people with bladder symptoms, especially if you're a midlife or postmenopausal woman. It takes a conversation with your clinician, but there are a ton of interventions that go beyond restricting your fluids 2 hours before bedtime and trying to avoid bladder irritants. That would be everything fun, like coffee, tea, even decaffeinated coffee or tea, anything with bubbles in it. So like carbonated water is a big bladder irritant. So there's lots of things that make for unhappy bladders because they stimulate the detrusor nerve, which is the nerve that tells the bladder to spasm. So yes, that's probably fine, but you could maybe optimize and do better than that.
I've seen they have things like time release melatonin. Does that not really work? Is that just,
So
for that, like you said, it helps
Yeah.
you fall asleep but not stay asleep?
yeah, so I would love to see a nice randomized control trial on time release melatonin. Will we ever see it? Probably not. Melatonin is not really a sexy thing that a pharmaceutical company is trying to make money off of. That being said, when something is time released, it's usually because it has a capsule or something around it that delays absorption. So how quickly your stomach's going to break it down. I don't really, I would say it's worth a try if someone wanted to try melatonin. I can think of basically no contraindications to trying it. There are adverse effects that could potentially happen, even something benign like melatonin, like abnormal dreaming is one of the side effects that's reported. But in general, if someone wanted to try that, they could. I think there's other options that are probably more effective for middle of the night wake up. So
Like what?
depends if you're a man or a woman. That is a great question to have with your clinician, but it depends. And the complexity is it depends on why is someone waking up in the middle of the night. Is it a bladder problem? Is it a breathing problem? I can't make a plug enough here for how many cases of sleep apnea are undiagnosed. Right now, the CDC estimates that 1 in 3 adults has sleep apnea. 1 in 3 adults. That kind of makes sense with the fact that by 2030, the CDC estimates that 80% of adults will have overweight or obesity. So that kind of makes sense. But a lot of people, especially midlife women, are not getting tested or diagnosed with sleep apnea because they lack that classic, middle of the night sawing wood where their spouse is, waking them up. Sometimes it's just they wake up feeling unrefreshed. Or sometimes it's they, are just doing these middle of the night. They might tell me, oh, my bladder wakes me up. But it's not actually their bladder. It's that they're being woken up by their breathing patterns. They're not getting into deep restorative sleep. And then once their brain's a little active, then they feel a bladder cue. So my short answer is it depends on what's waking up that person. But there are FDA-approved medications that are better for middle of the night wake up. And then there are, of course, hormonal options for women who are good candidates like estrogen or progesterone, especially if you're midlife or postmenopausal, which are excellent for sleep architecture. It's a good question, though.
What about taking like an Advil PM or a Tylenol?
Sure, I love that question. So if you're taking something over the counter that says it's sleepy, like Advil PM or ZQuil or something like that, chances are it is an antihistamine, something like a cousin of Benadryl. Advil PM in particular has Benadryl inside of it. Why does that make us sleepy? Oh, I get to go back to that first slide there when we talked about the 2 pathways. If you are blocking the cue to histamine, you're blocking the wakefulness pathway. So antihistamines make us sleepy. Benadryl, we need to be careful with because Benadryl is on the Beers criteria, which is that list of medications that have to be used cautiously in adults 60 or older because it increases the risk of falls and confusion and disorientation. So Benadryl, we have to be careful. It's not as benign as you think. And as a metabolic health specialist, wouldn't my face be red if I didn't tell you that using Benadryl chronically increases the risk of weight gain. Benadryl is an obesogenic medication. It makes us put on weight. So is Advil PM a good choice for someone who has musculoskeletal concerns and they're not sleeping? Sure. It sounds like a great Band-Aid. Or if you're sick and you've got a really runny nose, is Benadryl a great product? Yes, absolutely. But as a long-term sleep aid, it's probably not the best choice. 1, because unfortunately we get a little used to it. So it kind of loses its potency and you need more doses of Benadryl over time. 2, it leads to metabolic health conditions, including weight gain. And then 3, it's not really great for people as we age. But sure, in short term. Other questions?
As far as sleep app,
Yes.
I don't know if you have the answer to this, but the CPAP machine is the standard of care. What about to track the
The Inspire device.
Yes.
Yes. So her question was, if you couldn't hear it, was for people with sleep apnea, we know that CPAP or breathing masks are the standard of care, but what about these other devices? What about this implantable Inspire device? So this device is really neat. Unfortunately, it's not the right choice for every person with sleep apnea. You have to be a good candidate for it. And to figure that out, you would probably need to see either a sleep medicine expert or an ENT who would actually install the device. But it's basically this little device that gets installed under your chest wall. And it works with a little remote control that you turn on when it's time to go to sleep. And what it does is it stimulates the hypoglossal nerve. So you have a nerve that innervates, that gives signal to your tongue, underneath your tongue. And what this device does is it kind of, how you're giving something, you might not know this, but if you're giving someone CPR, you have to kind of do a jaw thrust and you have to pull their jaw forward to open up their airway. Well, this medication is moving their tongue out of the way to open up their airway. So that's how it works. So it's not meant for everyone, but boy, is it neat. If you are a candidate for it. So yeah, be a squeaky wheel and talk to your clinician about it. Any other questions? It's 7:02 if anyone's interested in the time, but I'm happy to stay here and answer anything else. Sure.
So I've talked to several people who complain about like waking up at a certain time during the night.
Sure.
Say 3
3 a.m.
Yeah.
And they tend to be a
So is
midlife
that
or
a-
postmenopausal woman. We're just guessing.
No, but I've
Oh,
heard the
okay.
same thing. Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, it's,
Sure.
some of them anyways. But I mean, is that circadian?
Ah, that is such a beautiful question. And I don't think I have a straightforward answer to say yes or no. I'm going to say sure. And what I mean by that is it might be, but our sleep concerns don't happen in a vacuum, right? If you think about those 5 things contributing to sleep, what is that person in their 60s battling? Are there medical conditions? Are there medications they're taking? Is there just an organic change to their sleep architecture because of age? Because if you think back to one of those earlier charts I showed you, wake after sleep onset or WASO increases as we age, and that's an independent thing from someone related to their hormonal changes or their general sleep time. So I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you, boy, if you're a midlife woman, I can tell you what you're going to say when you come into my clinic, and it's that you wake up every night and the clock says something between 2 and 3. And that's kind of, even before someone complains about hot flashes, that's the first thing I hear. So to validate those
So what
things.
about like, the only thing I haven't heard you mention, probably more obvious, is like anxiety.
Sure. So psychiatric conditions and overlapping with sleep concerns, right?
Yeah.
So at its heart, what is generalized anxiety? It's a heightened sympathetic response, right? It's like turning on fight or flight. And if you think about those 2 pathways, one that promotes sleep, one that promotes wakefulness, same hormones that promote wakefulness are the same ones that are more prevalent in anxiety disorder. The tricky thing about anxiety is what's causing the anxiety? Is it a lifetime thing? Is it like a situational thing? Is it a hormonal thing, like a midlife hormone change? Is the anxiety a side effect of a medication that someone's taking for something completely unrelated? It's really complex stuff, but sure, people tend to have concerns of sleep when they have anxiety disorder. Yeah. Sure.
If you do wake up in the middle of the night,
Sure.
maybe get up, use the bathroom and fall asleep rather quickly, and then all day I don't feel tired.
What do I think about that person?
That
Asking for a
person,
friend?
Whoever.
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
I know someone.
No, I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
because I did have a time where I would fall asleep. I know I wasn't sleeping well, but is that a good indicator if you don't feel tired during the day, but maybe fall asleep watching?
So I think there's some nuance there. If you came into my clinic, the first thing I would say is I need a little more information. Like, how long has this been going on? Are the circumstances kind of the same all the time? Like, do you tend to wake up at the same time? Do you tend to fall asleep at the same time? Do they seem like they're related to any one trigger? I would ask you to fill out those 2 surveys for me so I can get an idea of how bothered someone might be by their symptoms. And when in doubt, I would order a sleep study.
Okay.
Middle of the night wake ups, they're,
Yeah.
A lot of times underreported sleep apnea, even without the obvious snoring history.
Reading in bed is not good, the book.
What do I think about reading in bed? So I am a person who reads in bed.
Mhm.
I think just like there's, good television and bad television, I think there's good reading and bad reading. So how would I read in bed? I would read in bed if I were using an actual book, or something in yellow light, not in blue light. And I would pick something kind of boring and mindless. I would try to think of something that's not activating my sympathetic nervous system. So it's not the time to read a thriller or something you're really interested in. And if I were having issues falling asleep or staying asleep, then I would start to look at my sleep hygiene and say, is my reading related to this? Am I loving what I'm reading and that's activating my wakeful state? Or am I reading on my Kindle or my device and that's activating my blue light brain?
You talked about the menopausal women that anyway, anywhere between 2 and 3.
Oh, yeah.
So you said you hear that an awful lot.
Yes.
So what do you tell them? Like,
Yeah.
what is that just part of menopause, or is there
You know, are you
Question, yeah.
leaning towards the sleep apnea or a bunch of menopause?
Yes. I say that because sleep disorders, if I could think of the top 3 things that women note to me with menopause, other than hot flashes and, you know, concerns with their mood changes, I would say sleep disorders is probably the next common thing that people experience. I think it goes really underreported because we just assume that that's just what life is, right? We think it's okay to wake up. We think it's okay to take 30 minutes to fall asleep at night. That's not normal. It should take only a few minutes to fall asleep. So what would I tell that woman? I would say, I need to know a little bit more. Like, where is she in her cycles? Is she still getting periods? Are we talking about perimenopause or are we talking about a postmenopausal woman? And then I would say, how bothered are you by this? Are you waking up because it's a hot flash? Or are you just waking up without regard to hot flashes or an angry bladder and you're just counting sheep in the middle of the night? And there is an organic change to sleep architecture that happens to women at midlife, where they get less restorative sleep and more of that easily roused state. So that's happening without regard to your hot flashes. Because remember, estradiol is both a neurotransmitter and a hormone that impacts nearly every cell type in the body that causes a variety of symptoms when you don't have enough of it.
Well, for instance, like, well, I'm a post, joint, and, no hot flashes, I probably.
I'll knock on something for you.
And, but sometimes I feel like I just wake up to roll over. I'm like, we're just moving in my sleep. I feel like I wake up and I just roll over.
Yeah.
I go right back to sleep, but sometimes I'm like, why did I wake up just to change position?
I think that's probably a part of sleep architecture changing as we age, which is accelerated by the menopause hormone transition, but we're just in more rousable state. So when you're in N1 or N2, a small stimulus that might not have woken you up if you were in N3, you're going to get more of those. So it's higher likelihood of waking. That's what I would say. But I'd say to talk to your clinician, because even if you're a postmenopausal person, there might still be something that you can do to optimize here. Think about the $150 billion we spent on supplements last year, right? We're all looking to make things something better or healthier or stronger or fitter or whatever it is. So talk to your clinician.
Is your presentation gonna be available to us?
Yes. So it's being recorded.
It'll give us a couple of days to edit it and we'll get it up on our website and on our YouTube channel. I'll send you guys all an email when it's. Yeah.
You get to listen to my voice if you want to fall asleep. Just press that again. We're going to talk about data some more. Any other questions?
Subject of reading it,
Reading it.
yellow light versus blue light. I understand they made reading glasses blue blockers.
Yeah. Not sure. And I say that because I don't have a beautiful randomized controlled trial that showed if it does or doesn't. Anecdotally, what do I think? I think if you're comfortable wearing glasses in bed and you can block some of that blue light, maybe it would help. But I think you could avoid the glasses if you just kind of use a yellow light. So using an actual light bulb, low, or even like an orange tone to a light bulb might be helpful. Think of like candlelight being like the lightest light that we should be using when it's sleepy time.
What about the Kindle that has the, you could change the background to black? That's still considered.
Well, jury's out. I would say that's what I do. So I'm a Kindle user and I have it on the black background with the white letters.
Yeah.
But I'm not a person who has a concern with my sleep right now. So I would say just listen to your body because you know yourself best. If you start tracking and doing a sleep log and you're starting to see some patterns, oh, the night I used my Kindle, even when it was on the dark screen, I noticed I was waking up more or having a harder time falling asleep. You might just be that you're sensitive to it. But I don't have a great randomized controlled trial that shows me that these Kindles do not stimulate or impact our circadian rhythm. Any other questions?
I'll ask one. Sure. So I know the suggestion is when you wake up in the middle of the night to get lie there for 10 minutes or so, 15, and if you don't fall asleep, then to get up. But like, I don't know, it's cold out. Like, we think that would just wake you up. Like, it's cold and you're turning on the lights, and then you're getting up. I would think that's worse than lying over and using a dim light, reading in bed, or reading the reverse Kindle. But
I hear what you're saying.
No.
I think at the very least, getting yourself out of your bed and doing that activity in your bedroom in a different chair will help with the association between bed is for sex and sleep. So I think there are ways to do this that are less You know, if you're getting up in the middle of the night, 'cause you gotta take your dog out to pee, that's very different than if you can shuffle over to your chair and turn on the lamp and read. So I agree that there's different, maybe things you can do to stimulate that wakefulness pathway. But yeah, the evidence shows that when you're tossing and turning, gotta get out of bed. And it is cold, I know.
Do you have any, like mind games to help you fall asleep, like counting or something that's shown to be, or breathing exercises or?
Yeah, I do actually. I probably have put that in here, but I didn't. So I love doing like I guess I gotta call it meditation, if you will, but doing kind of like a full body relaxation where you do systematic relaxation starting from your head going down to your toes. So you like tense up the muscles of your upper body and then you let them go, and you tense up the muscles of your core and then you let them go. So you can do progressive relaxation interventions. Listening to meditation might be helpful. So there are like certain, you wanted to like throw in an ear, not to disturb your partner, throw in an earbud or something and listen to like a meditation on sleep that can help you to get into kind of like a relaxation state. But yeah, I don't necessarily count sheep, but I think that progressive relaxation can be really helpful for kind of releasing your muscles and doing some, you know, deep breathing before you go to bed, like even doing some box breathing where you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds. What you're trying to do is you're trying to just change who's driving the bus. You want to take the sympathetic fight or flight driver and replace it with the parasympathetic relaxation state driver. And there's many ways to do that with meditation or like progressive muscle relaxation.
I had a question about sleep apnea again.
Yeah.
I heard that GLP-1 also is effective for some sleep apnea. Do you know anything
I
about
love
that?
that question. So there are different types of injectable. Thank you, ladies, for coming. Thank you. There are different types of GLP-1 medications. The one that's FDA approved for sleep apnea is called Zepbound. This is not just a GLP-1 though, it's a novel type of drug. And if you hear anything from me, if you want to be the most interesting person at the next dinner party you go to, you can say, hey, did you know not all GLP-1s are the same? Zepbound is a GLP-1 and GIP agonist. What that means is that it has affinity for 2 different hormone receptors, not just one. So Zepbound got the FDA approval for sleep apnea treatment because it's so effective at weight loss. So if you're a person who has overweight or obesity that with sleep apnea, Zepbound at doses of 15 milligrams or 12.5 if you can't tolerate the high dose have been shown to help people treat their sleep apnea without CPAP or inspired. It's really cool. Fortunately, it's not covered by a lot of insurance for the sleep apnea diagnosis. But you should talk to your clinician because you can, if you are a person with sleep apnea, it's a fantastic treatment option and you can get it without using your prescription insurance if you go through the manufacturer's website, which is Lilly Direct. Any other questions? No?
That would be
Thank
great.
you.
Great job, Kate.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you. Thanks for hearing me. Oh, I should have had you up here.
Yeah, the only thing I would have said,